Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our All Things DSO with Brian Colao. We're really excited to have you back, Brian, and we have so much to talk about. The Dykema conference is coming up in just a few weeks.
It's really, yeah. It wasn't until this morning that I looked at the calendar. It was funny because I saw we were going to talk about this and I was like, why are we talking about it? It's months away. And then I looked and the calendar has just gotten away from us. It's right about 2 months away. So this is, you're, as always, Beth, you're right and I'm wrong. This is the right time to talk about it. And the calendar has just gotten away from me. My goodness, you're right. It's coming right up. So we should be talking about it today.
Well, the other thing about it, because I've made this mistake in the past. If you wait too long, if you're one of those people, it's like I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it to Denver. It starts July 10th. Um, you might not have a hotel room at the Gaylord Hotel. I mean, your event sells out fast, and so like now is really the time to be planning it, and so yeah, I wanted to have you on to kind of talk about you know this really exciting thing that you're doing, the most powerful 3 hours in the DSO industry. And what I'm excited about is, if I was going to be titling this, is like, don't make these 10 mistakes that you have seen over and over and over again in your 30 years of advising DSOs. And that these are really the 10 things that every single DSO executive needs to know in order to make their operation run smoothly, right?
Well, it's really, yeah. It's all that and then some more, actually. Really, what I wanted to do in one place, because to my knowledge, nobody's ever tried this. I've been to, I don't know how many hundreds of these events, at least in the last 10, 12 years. You've been to a lot of them, Beth. Nobody's tried this. And the objective is basically detailing everything that if you do this correctly will increase your EBITDA and grow your organization. And if you do it incorrectly, could hurt your EBITDA. So it's not always, of these 10 things, which we're going to go over in a minute, some of them are positive, like, you got to do these and you'll see growth. Others are, it's defense. They're not going to grow your organization, but if you don't do this correctly and you have a negative incident, it could devastate. Like, I'll give one away, cybersecurity. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. If you don't do that correctly while doing it, doesn't grow your organization. If you do it wrong, it can be devastating on your organization. And I can't wait to talk about them. But that's what I set about to do, to come up with everything I could think of that if you do it correctly, grows your organization, or if you don't do it, could have material negative effects on your organization.
Well, let's start with some of the things that people really need to do right. And I'm going to tell you, when I started in the DSO industry back in 2011, I did not realize this was such a big deal, and that is culture.
Yeah.
And I feel like during the last 15 years, culture has really become such a huge part about why people might be choosing to work with you, why people might be choosing to merge with you or be acquired by you. And also, culture can kill deals if you're looking to acquire another, practice or group, and the culture is not a good fit. So tell us a little bit about that, your learnings from that one and what people will be learning about.
The market has evolved, Beth. It used to be if your organization was profitable, it didn't matter. You could be like Genghis Khan or something and have skull racks in your office. And if it was profitable, somebody would buy you, it would be okay. Now, it's not the case. Culture went from like a nice to or a luxury item to a critical component. And, we don't have time to talk about it today, but we're going to talk a little bit, but at my conference, there are statistics we're going to go over where there is now a direct correlation between EBITDA and growth and culture. And there's not time today, but we'll go through that at our conference, or if you can't make our conference, we'll another day, maybe we can tackle that. But it's become so critical that, if you have a positive culture, your EBITDA has been demonstrated statistically to go up. If you don't, it has a negative impact, and certain buyers won't buy your organization or will attach a much lower value to it if you don't have a positive culture. So it's really, really become absolutely critical.
And you really need to have a culture plan in place for post acquisition if you are, acquiring another group. I remember when I was working as the marketing director at one DSO, and we were growing from 125 locations to 180 locations. So it was a really big acquisition all at once, and they had never done anything like that before. And the other contributing factor to this whole thing was that the company I worked for was based only in Georgia and Florida. And the practices we were acquiring were California, Nevada, and had a military base in Texas, which is a whole different culture. And one of the things that we did right off the bat is we launched an intranet. And basically, for these practices that were coming in, they had a place to go where we had done videos because, obviously I have a video background. We did videos with all of the different like C-suite, and they could hear the CEO talk, the COO talk, the chief people person, and everyone kind of shared like what they did, what their role was, and what they needed to do. And we even had a section where you could put in questions and submit questions, and then on the back side we would segment them on out to the appropriate person to answer, and then we would share the answers to frequently asked questions, and like the scroll that people could go through. And it was really helpful to help acclimate people to what our culture was, to what, how we did things, gave them a resource to use. And it was one of the things I felt like we did right. And what was a very difficult transaction, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's different layers of culture, right? You want to have culture in your organization, like what your culture is, and you want that to be positive. That's layer one. Layer two is if you're acquiring somebody else, you got to make sure they fit with your culture, because if they don't fit with your culture, sort of negative things, kind of can happen. And as you expand, you want to make sure that, you don't lose your culture. And sometimes you've got to have discipline. You've got to say no to deals that otherwise look good on paper, because it can, disturb your culture. So there's a whole bunch of elements to culture that you really have to take seriously if you want your organization to succeed. And, we're going to have a really detailed discussion of that at our event. But for now, I mean, just people need to know it's very critical.
Well, if you have a great culture, it makes it easier to attract talented people and then also retain them. And I know that's another segment that you're going to be talking about. And that one's with John Fiddler of Fiddler and Associates, who is one of my favorite people on the planet, and Heidi Arndt of Evolved Dental Advisors, who also just knows so much about what goes into creating a workplace that people want to come to, but also how things have evolved. They used to be sometimes about just the salary. And tell us about how attracting and retaining talent now includes so many more aspects than just salary.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't cover it, Sam Zarabi and Jeff Adams are going to be doing our culture panel, and they've got incredible culture at Rhesus and at Rodeo Dental. So just to recap that, we're looking forward to it. On the attracting and retaining talent, where, yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's directly correlated with your culture. If you have a poor culture, you're probably going to lose a lot of people. If you have a positive culture, you're going to be able to hang on to them and recruit more people. You've got Heidi Art, you've got John Fiddler. They're going to have some statistics. Everything we're doing in our event, Beth, is going to be statistically based and case study based. It's not just going to be, hey, take our word for it, here's our opinion. It's actually going to be backed up by statistics, studies, or particular case studies in the DSO industry. And I've looked at a preview of what John and Heidi are doing, and it's really good. It's really powerful stuff about what the marketplace looks like for clinical employees and non-clinical employees, what they want. Because what we want or what we think should happen is not, unfortunately, Beth, the way it works in the marketplace. The way it works in the marketplace is you've got to consider what the employees now want, whether they're non-clinical folks or clinical folks, what's important to them. And the more you can accommodate the things that are important to them, the better chance you have of attracting and retaining them. And you might think, well, it doesn't matter. I'm the employer. I'm old school. They'll do what we want. You'll have nobody working there. Nobody will be working there. So you really have to do that. And it's a really fun, presentation. Again, I can't do it justice in the time we have here, but I've gotten a preview of it. I'm so excited to listen to John and Heidi kind of go through, again, the state of the market, what is important to clinical, what's important to non-clinical, and what's been tried and true right now and effective in this marketplace. Not what's been effective 5 years ago or a year or 2 years ago, but what is effective right now to attract people and get them to stay.
And I think that one thing, so I was texting with John this morning, and, it surprises me that remote work and flexible hours is still such a key consideration for people as they're negotiating contracts. I thought that 4 years after COVID, I thought that we would have moved back to a more traditional workplace environment. And John's telling me that no, that's not the case.
I
That they're
mean, please,
missing.
Beth, don't get me started. We always have such a great interaction, you and I, and now you're getting me worked up here. Unfortunately, I mean, but it's the point is what I want is not the standard. The standard is you got to accommodate the folks that, I mean, to the extent possible, you've got to accommodate the folks that are working there. And if you can't, you're not going to have people working there. And I've been very, you come here at Dykema and you walk the halls. I think the compromise we did is you got to come Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but Mondays and Fridays you don't. So you walk through here on Monday or Friday and it's a morgue. It's like there's nobody here. And I mean, personally, I don't like it. But that's not the standard. You've got to be able to look at this generation of workers and accommodate them in the ways they want to be accommodated, or you're going to have trouble attracting and retaining talent.
Well, that's really one of the fun things that John and Heidi did such a great job at, is it kind of like gives you that framework of like what can you negotiate, what's kind of non-negotiable. If somebody asks for something that you don't want to give, like what can you do in response? So not only are they fantastic for their, time on stage, but they're just great people to be talking to at the conference when you run into them in the halls as well. Like they just are so skilled in what they do. And they've seen so many contracts. So they really know what's out there and what's available to
Yeah.
people. Well, so the next thing that I know, because I follow you on LinkedIn, obviously, is same store growth. And in this case, you're going to be talking to my old boss, the only a good car. And he gave me a little bit of a preview of it. And it goes, far beyond just what Patient Prism is known for, which is call tracking and call conversion. But it's really a wide ranging forum that you two are going to be talking about all the different
Yeah, I
ways.
mean, we're not selling anything on stage. I mean, Beth,
Yeah,
we don't do that, but we're not selling. I mean, so if anybody thought, hey, we're going to get up here and it's going to be like 15 minutes about Patient Prism, which I think everybody knows I'm very close with the ball. It's got a great organization, but notwithstanding that, it's not going to be an infomercial on
yeah.
Patient Prism. It's going to be a far reaching discussion of all of the innovations out there that can improve same store growth. Amal has done a terrific job of doing like a survey of the market of everything that's out there for artificial intelligence, for maybe discount plans, for practice management software, and he's got other categories, a whole big thing. And he's going to survey the market and say this patient finance plans. He's going to go through everything and say here are the things that can increase same store growth. Here's how they work, and here's what the ROI has been. So I'm really really excited to hear him make a presentation. And look, I may let him talk a little bit about Patient Prism. It's a great organization, but we're not going to be selling anything on stage.
No, it's definitely I mean, you know me, so it's all about creating an inclusive environment, and you have to be really looking at same store growth drivers all the way through the process, with from your performance marketing, making sure that you're marketing to correct people at the correct time, that they have an easy way to make an appointment with you, smart scheduling. That if they are calling in to the phone, that you have that call conversion, you know how to talk to them and actually get butts and shares, as I like to say. Once they're there, what kind of technology can you be using in order to increase case acceptance? And, things like hygiene optimization is so key right now, especially with the hygienist shortage that's happening. And then all the way through billing and the RCM automation. So I'm really excited for that segment on same store growth. I think it's going to be unlike, other ones I've seen at Yankee Dental and at other conferences that I've been to this year. And I'm really excited about it.
No, it's one of my favorites, and we're just going to tick through everything in the market and how it can contribute to same store growth. And Amal is very knowledgeable about technology, so he really has a lot of things to add, more detailed than me. I know the things that are out there, but he can sort of add a lot more detail. So I can't wait. That will be one of my favorite discussions of the whole conference, without a doubt.
Well, and especially when you have case studies, because I think that when you're able to show how the levers are actually, eh, having a direct effect and a measurable effect. And then for people who might not know, maybe they're in an emerging DSO or they're new to the industry and they're coming to this conference and they're not as familiar with dentistry. It's really got to say like, okay, this is what you should be tracking in order to measure whether or not this technology that you've put in or this lever that you've pulled, this new SOP that you've implemented is really influencing same store growth the way that you thought it would and hoped that it would.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, not everything is equal. Not all same store growth is equal. Some things don't have the ROI that other things have. And I know, I don't mean to take your thunder away, but another topic is KPIs. That's going to be at our event. And if we could segue a little bit into that also, because not all KPIs are equal, just like not all same store growth is equal. I can't wait to see, I think that's Mike White from CLA and Dr. Aman Carr from Woman in DSO, two industry veterans with a wealth of knowledge, had a lot of positions, and they're going to go over it. But it's the same thing with that. Not all KPIs are equal. And I was talking, I think, yesterday, with Dr. Aman about KPIs and about that presentation. And she made clear that there is so much data available right now in the marketplace. A lot of the PMS systems and others are so sophisticated, they could spit out 100 statistics, but quite frankly, no offense to anybody, some of it is going to be background noise for your organization, and some of it's going to be absolutely critical to your organization. And you've got to differentiate between what KPIs you really need to look at and which ones are sort of, luxury items. Nice to see, nice to know that, but not going to be critical, because nobody, I know Planet DDS got the Denicon. It's a great system, but you could go crazy trying to keep track of all of it. You got to look at it and say, hey, these are the 5 or 10 things that I am going to focus on. And every so often, I might do a deep dive and really analyze these other things. But in my day-to-day life, these are the things that are going to be absolutely critical to me. And I can digest that information, look at like the Denicon dashboard. I can digest this in seconds, and I know where I stand, because not everybody has time, Beth, for a really lengthy deep dive every single day.
Oh, let me tell you, I remember when I was working inside DSOs, the number of data points I'd have to export in an Excel spreadsheet. And I'm me, I'm a writer. Like, if I wanted to do numbers, I would have gone into accounting. It was miserable. And so now to have practice management systems like Denicon, like you mentioned, where you can have like all these different dashboards, and you have your morning huddle dashboard right there. And we have 8 different dashboards now that we've rolled out just since January to give people just what they need to know for their particular role in order to be successful with what they're doing, and not to have that information overload. I was chatting with Mike White this morning, and he said the one thing that they're going to talk about is if you are making like $100,000 per month right now for practice, and you want to move to $125,000 per month for practice, how are you going to get there? And it's, knowing about those leading and lagging indicators and what they mean, what you should be calling, and then what to do with that information in order to make it actionable data. And I just think
the thing I loved about that's right, because you're refreshing my memory a little bit on that, because I talked to Mike and Dr. Aman on this. I remember what Dr. Aman said, but I forgot that's what Mike said. But the thing that was the big takeaway for me for the whole thing is we're going to make this digestible for you, so you don't get overloaded with all these KPIs. We're going to make this real easy. We're going to show you the ones that are critical and the ones that you can look at real quick. Like, hey, I got 5 minutes to figure out where we stand. You can look at these 10. I don't know if their number is going to be 10 or 11 or 12, what their final number is, but it's a small number. I mean, it's like say 10 or 11 KPIs. If you can look at these KPIs in 5 minutes or so, you have a really good sense for where you stand and where, when you have a little more time, where you need to drill down to look at things. And I loved it when I heard about that, and that's what they did. And I got a sneak peek at their slides. I absolutely loved the presentation and can't wait to see it.
Well, anytime that I have a chance to work with Mike, I think I've written 2 ebooks at 2 different companies with him in the past. Working with him on another ebook with my current company, and I just adore him. And then, of course, I've known Dr. Kaur for years and just think the world of her too. So the next subject I saw on your, as part of this top 3 hours is regulatory compliance. This is your bread and butter. Tell us a little bit about what that segment will be.
Yeah, it's another one of those where you will not grow your organization from being regulatory compliant. You may prevent your organization from going under and having devastating things happen. That's why you have to do it. But a lot of CEOs have challenged me over the years, other business people, like, do I really got to spend money on this? What am I really getting? This doesn't grow my organization. I could take the money I'm paying you and I can put it in advertising and marketing. What the hell are we doing here? And it is really really important. I mean, it is. It's one of those things. It's a cost of doing business. If you pay, a lawyer or a staff member or somebody to put together a comprehensive plan of compliance, that will not grow your EBITDA. Doing that compliance plan is not going to do it. If you're compliant with all the HR regulations, or if you're compliant with all the labor and employment regulations, that will not. That may cost you money. It's not going to increase your EBITDA, but what it will stop you is from having a devastating class action lawsuit, a devastating labor and employment issue. If it's regulatory compliance, you get fined from HIPAA, you get fined from, OSHA or the Department of Labor, or the IRS comes in because they don't like your accounting, and you get penalty or a fine. I mean, this stuff can devastate your EBITDA, and you just have to do it. Now we can do it in a cost effective way. I mean, it's not like, some unlimited, and this is what we're going to talk about. And I'll be up there with my partner, Zach Hord at Dykema, and Ali from HR for Health is going to be up there on the HR. He's going to be an HR specific. And we can talk about how to do all this stuff in a cost effective manner, so that it's not like, okay, compliance means I have to go broke. No, it doesn't mean that. But you do have to spend some money, and you do have to spend some time and energy, because if you don't, just really bad things will happen. I mean, you could roll the dice, and I've seen it with organizations that were very successful financially, and they just rolled the dice, and then all of a sudden, something happened, and the event that happened, whether it was a cyber issue, whether it was a class action lawsuit, whether it was a big regulatory audit, it wiped out their EBITDA for the year. So it was kind of like everything that you were doing, and now you got to pay, and I've seen it, $1 million in legal fees, $500,000 in legal fees, a fine of some sort. You thought that was all going to go to your EBITDA, and for a mid-sized organization, that could wipe out, your EBITDA. If you were looking for $1 million, $1.5 million of EBITDA at the end of the year, because you're, a small or mid-sized organization, and you got to pay a $500,000 fine or $1 million fine or something. I mean, that can devastate all of your profits basically for a whole year.
Well, I've done a lot of articles in this industry, and I've done a lot of videos in this industry. And one of the questions that I like to ask CEOs is like, what is a position that you would have hired earlier if you knew then what you know now? And compliance director comes up really often. I mean, especially if they work with like Medicaid or Medicare, anything.
In Medicaid, Beth, I'll just say this real quick, because, I know we got to move along to some things, but hopefully, as the weeks go on, we can delve into some of these things even in more detail, on this show. But, Medicaid, I just had this happen this week. It still bothers me. Like, I'm upset about it, sitting here talking to you about it. Oh. The doctor made mistakes. Let's just keep it real simple. The doctor made mistakes. The amount of the mistakes in Medicaid amounted to about $70,000, okay, of mistakes. So, you might, as a logical human being, say, all right, well, let's return the 70 grand. And if I said, well, there's a penalty, as a logical human being, you might be like, all right, so they returned the 70 grand. And what did they do? They paid a 10 grand penalty, a 25 grand penalty. All right, not terrific, but, okay. They paid $500,000, because by the time the government's done with they triple the penalty and the interest and I don't even know. I yelled at the government. Like, I yell at the government all the time. I'm still dizzy over like my interaction with the government. But by the time they're done, I call it like monopoly money. Like, we have real money in the real world. Like, okay, you got overcharged $70,000. So we owe you $70,000. What's a fair penalty? 10 grand, 50, what should we pay here? I think we owe you 85 or 90 grand. By the time the monopoly money's over with the government, it's they've demanded $1 million or $1.5 million. And after you yell and scream at them like I do, you pay $500,000. I mean, it's absolutely horrible when these compliance events happen. So when somebody says to you, yeah, geez, I wish I had hired a compliance person early, it's because one of these happened. And if you take Medicaid, it's just going to happen at some point. Now, if you have a plan of compliance in place, when it happens, maybe it's a 10 or 20 grand event, you move on. If you don't have a plan of compliance in place and it happens, it could be exactly what I said. 70,000 of actual overcharging turns into $500,000 or more in fines and penalties. It just makes me sick. But that's
but I just want to bring up that, you and I go to a lot of conferences, and we see people kind of like, sometimes they dip out in the back, they take a phone call, and because they have a meeting scheduled, nobody's going to want to leave during these, the 3 hour
I don't
block.
think so. And I set it up 15 minutes. I know everybody's busy. I've been to about 700 of these conferences like you. I know what happens. And I have to get on the phone sometimes. I'm totally
Yeah.
sympathetic. But I said, how can I do this to make it digestible, quick, so no one, gets bored? And we got they're 15-minute segments. There's
Yeah.
10, 15. I mean, at the end is Steve Bill and Stan Bergman on leadership. That's longer. But the first 10 are 15-minute segments. So it's sort of, there's going to be 3, 4, 5 slides tops, 15 minutes. If there's 2 presenters, 7.5 minutes each, just when you were thinking maybe about getting bored, it's over and we're on to the next one. So really, I've designed this so that
Yep.
it's filled with information, it's value added, but it's quick. It's really, really quick.
Well, I'm talking to Amy Bridger with Cabaret Consulting Group tomorrow, and she was filling me in about her session that's going to be on procurement and inventory management. And she was talking about if you can decrease supply spend by just 1%, that it can boost EBITDA by 4 to 6%. And she's going to have some case studies that show that.
Absolutely incredible. Her and Stephanie Schoenrock are getting up there from Cavaretta Consulting, and it's their first time on the big stage. They are so into this. Like they're really whatever anybody else is doing, they're studying times 10 or something because they're really, really excited. And they've got a lot of stuff. But one thing that did stick out is exactly what you said. Very small change in your procurement spend, which can be done easy. They've told me they can't wait to present. If you look at your organization and your goal is to just get it down 1%. It's often people ordering off the formulary or people being sloppy, people not sticking to the cheaper, the lower price you can get for that product at that time. It always is how'd they say it, a loss of discipline in the a breakdown of discipline in the ordering system. So it's something that can easily be fixed in most cases, they say, and I can't wait to see their presentation. And you lower that thing just 1%, and it's 4 to 6% increase in EBITDA, which in this marketplace is absolutely game changing.
And really, as I said, you mentioned that, I mean, you always say you can't cut your way to profitability, but all of these things add up.
But this isn't a cut. Yeah. But let's talk about that. You're right. You cannot cut your way to profitability. That's just a cheap parlor trick that you can deploy once or twice and then it's over with. This is fiscal discipline. This is an internal control. It's not a cut. It's an internal control. A cut would be, I don't know. We have to order, I'm just going to make this up. We have to order 100 pairs of gloves, but we're only going to order 92 pairs of gloves. That's a cut. You can't cut your way to profitability. But what you can do as an internal control is say, we're always going to order that 100 pair of gloves. We're not cutting back in any way, but we're going to make sure every time we order it, we get our negotiated price with, I don't know, Henry Schein, Patterson, whoever's ordering it, we get that price that we negotiated with that supplier, and we don't order, out of discipline and order something else at a higher price. And in a lot of organizations, there's a lot of different, what my mom used to say, too many chefs in the kitchen spoil the pot. There's too many people in the kitchen with their hands doing stuff, and you don't have that fiscal discipline. So this is not a cut. What Amy and Stephanie are going to talk about is installing internal controls to make sure you may order the exact amount of stuff and not cut back at all, but you're going to get the right price every time you do that, or you're going to negotiate a better price and you're going to end up with higher EBITDA. So, I mean, that's a great point you make, but this thing is not a cut. It's more an internal control.
Well, another area, and you alluded to this earlier, that requires a lot of discipline is around making sure that you have everything in place to prevent a cyber security attack. And I know you're going to have Gary Salmon from Black Talent Security and Patrick Jacob with Sunset Technologies, both talking about it. And Gary shared with me that he's going to be that the two of them on stage are going to be talking about what happened when a DSO that had 15 locations was hit with a cyber attack, and that they're going to take the attendees kind of like live through the event as if it was happening to them.
In 15 minutes. That's the beauty. It's 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes. So they're going to do that. But yeah, no, Beth, I'm excited. I mean, we had a whole segment, on this earlier on this show about cyber protection with the change thing. It's so critical that you do this. And this is one where, we've said this earlier, one thing could wipe out your EBITDA for the year. If this is one of those things where if you do it wrong and you have a cyber attack, it can wipe out your EBITDA for the year. Gary and Patrick, they've got this case study of the 15 Office DSO. They're going to go through it. And two other things I want to say that they're going to help me answer. Okay. And these are going to be really sort of burning questions for me on this because it's evolving. There is very quickly becoming a lack of availability of insurance, Beth. It used to be like, oh, just get your cyber insurance, make sure you have the right insurance, and it's okay. The insurance companies are sort of like, we don't want to pay for this. It's like in Florida where you live, too many hurricanes, we don't want to pay for it anymore. Well, that's exactly the same thing here. Too many, quote, cyber hurricanes have happened and they don't want to pay for it anymore. So insurance is becoming more and more scarce, more difficult, more exclusions, harder to recover. I want to talk about that with them because a lot of people may not know that. And then the other thing is, what do you do when there's an attack and there's a little bit of a difference of opinion? Do you pay the ransom? Pay the ransom? Do you try to combat the attack while it's going on? And these guys, I'm saying Patrick and Gary, have some really good perspectives on that. And I can't wait. It's going to be a very lively discussion on those topics.
As a former publicist, I love your term lively discussion. I mean, they have very opposite viewpoints on that. So it's going to be really
No,
interesting.
they do. And I don't want to give it all away, but they do. You know what? Let me just say, one of them thinks you should pay the ransom. The other one thinks you shouldn't. And this is something that the marketplace, I think, is interested. I was interested. I mean, normally cyber is kind of boring, but when I started hearing this and these guys were sort of going at it a little bit on their perspectives, I was like, this is fascinating. I mean, we got to kind of reach some sort of idea of, is it the best practice to pay the ransom, not pay the ransom? What can be done with insurance? I mean, it's a good discussion.
Well, you have two of my favorite people on the entire planet that are going to be there for a segment on advertising and marketing.
Yeah.
And that's Steve Fisher with Fisher's Professional Group and Gary Bird with SMC National. I know
That'll
both.
be entertaining in a different way. I don't think they're going to fight with each other, but it'll be entertaining in a different way. And I sat on a call again, just so everybody knows, for whatever it's worth, I am micromanaging this. I don't think anybody likes me. Like all these folks that I thought were my friends.
That is shocking. That is shocking to me.
Well, no, I don't. I usually don't, Beth. With our event, I usually get people that I trust, and then I trust them to go on stage, and that's it. But I got on all these things, your show included, and I said, this is going to be the most powerful 3 hours in the history of the industry. And now I feel like I opened up my mouth, and I better back this up, or I'm going to look silly. So I've been getting on calls with all of these folks, and they were all my friends at the beginning. I don't know where I stand with them now because it's getting crazy because I'm micromanaging them a little bit. But we got on a call with Dee and Gary, same thing. And, they had one series of things they wanted to do. And I said, that's okay, but can we do something else? And I have them, sort of making some changes. But I think it's going to be a very powerful presentation on ROI, on marketing, on the things that you do that do have a really good ROI, common mistakes you might make. What should your spend be? Are you spending enough here or spending enough there? I mean, I'm really, at least after we kind of went back and forth a few times, I'm really excited about that presentation.
Well, and I know Gary was sharing with me that one of his case study stats is going to be one group, 6 location groups, so a smaller group, had a 1,163% return on investment on their marketing spend. So I can't wait for him to share that. So another segment that you have is buying, selling, and lending. So mergers and acquisitions. I just wrote a 3-part series for Dr. Bicuspid. I quoted you in that. And it's such a huge topic right now, as always.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great article that you wrote, by the way. I mean, I guess we got to kind of get on to this, but it was a great article, Beth. I really liked it. I liked a lot of parts that quoted me. No, but it was a tremendous article. Really, really tremendous article. Great job on that. But you have to understand buying and selling and lending, even if you're not doing it right now. Somebody might only be like, most everybody's lending right now, or trying to, not lending, trying to, you're a borrower. If you're you're borrowing right now from someone. Could be your old community bank, a bigger bank, a more DSO specific bank, but everybody's got some kind of credit facility. So it's really important at a minimum that you understand the really dicey lending environment we find ourselves in. Everybody wants to, get back to buying offices. Some people are struggling right now and can't, but certainly when the the interest rates come down, everybody wants to be able to do it. So we're going to tell them, what they need to know in this current, marketplace. And of course, selling, that's the thing. We could spend hours and hours and hours, but we're going to spend 15 minutes and get right to the point. But we could spend hours and hours and hours on what the sellers need to know to maximize their value. And we're going to condense it down to a few minutes, but a few minutes of really important stuff.
Well, and I just wanted to point out to everybody, I mean, the whole conference is longer than 3 hours. So a lot of these, speakers will also be doing breakout sessions. They'll be on main stage at different times. And then you also have a series of workshops that are happening Wednesday, is it July 10th? That
Yeah, it's Wednesday, July
leading
10th,
up to
there'll be
the
the
official day.
workshops and yeah.
Yeah. So the last part of this, 3 hours though, is Steve Belt, and he's going to be talking about leadership. You want to give us
Steve Bill and Stan Bergman. It's interesting, right? So we're still working this out, but it's going to be fun. I'm going to get on a call with Steve and Stan here shortly, not today, but shortly to kind of talk about this. But Steve's going to talk about in general how to lead during tough times. And these have been very challenging times. And Steve is an incredible leader, and he added so much during COVID. I mean, that was the last really tough time, and I'll never forget some of the things he said about how you're going to move the path forward. I think he said you're going to start with a candle, graduate to a flashlight, then a little more powerful flashlight. It may be several months before we can turn the lights on and really see what we're dealing with. And I found Steve to be so inspirational during COVID. So he's going to come back out here and give a little keynote on leadership during hard times. And then I think what the plan is going to be, subject to everybody's approval. I don't tell Steve and Stan what to do. I just politely.
You're going to micromanage them.
I think it's not like Dee and Gary. I was like, hey, Dee and Gary, this is what's got to happen. But with Steve and Stan, I don't really tell them what to do. I politely ask if, this is a good idea. But what I think the plan is going to be is Stan Bergman and myself are going to come out and then have a discussion with Steve. So we're going to sit and we're going to listen to Steve's presentation right now, maybe 25 minutes or something. And then we're going to come out for about 20, 25 minutes and talk about what he talked about and ask him some questions. And I think it's going to be a really, really powerful segment like that.
Absolutely. Well, just to remind everyone, it's the most powerful 3 hours in the DSO industry. And it starts Wednesday, July 10th. And it ends Friday, July 12th. I always recommend people fly in Tuesday night. Well, I'll be there on Tuesday, so maybe that's why I'm recommending.
That's why everybody needs to come, Beth, because you're going to be there and you'll be at the bar. They just redid a giant bar at the Gaylord, this big horse bar. So I know you could maybe take up shop there and everybody will come down. If you're there, I'll come and everybody can come down and say hi to us.
Well, I'm still waiting for you to accept my dinner invitation, from one of my executive dinners that I'm having that you've approved for us. So I'm really excited about that as well. And so
I went in Chicago before. I mean, we shouldn't digress, but I went. It was a great dinner you had in Chicago in February. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry if I couldn't come to one after, but I'll get you again. I'll come for sure.
It's not a party unless you're there, Brian. So it's going to be a great time. And Brian, thanks so much for hopping on with us. We are actually over time. We've got 40 minutes instead of 30.
Well, thank you, Beth. This was great, and look forward to next month.
Well, thank you. And so for anyone who has any questions about Planet DDS, we just talked to a lot of experts about what's going on in the industry, but we also have a lot of technology that can help you as well. So please go ahead and scan this QR code and let us know how we can help you.